Welcome back, dear viewers. You're watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. It's now time for our second topic of discussion for today. And as we noted earlier in our introduction, we're going to be tackling the wrap-up of Egypt's economic sector during 2020, which is wrapping up. And to shed more light on this topic, we're most delighted to be joined over the phone by Mr. Hany Abou El Fotouh, economic expert. A very good morning, Mr. Hany.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, how do you see the performance of the Egyptian economy amid the coronavirus outbreak?
In fact, the financial performance of the Egyptian economy during the COVID-19 pandemic exceeded the expectations. The economic reforms, particularly which were adopted by the government, had strengthened the Egyptian economy and made it resilient in the face of the internal and external challenges. Of course, I would like to support my statement by, if you may allow me some time, I would like to show some figures that establish the strength of the and performance of the Egyptian economy. Just a few figures to illustrate how the Egyptian economy performed well during this difficult time. For example, if we take the economic growth rate Egypt achieved during this financial year, 3.6%, as opposed to 4.2% in the year 2016 and 17. And in fact, it was hoped and planned that Egypt would achieve 5.8%, but the pandemic affected all these expectations. Also, we see that the foreign exchange reserve now stands at $39.22 billion, as opposed to $23 billion in the fiscal year 16 and 17. And in fact, this is important to note that despite the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic, the reserves are still accumulating and reaching to a sufficient level to accommodate or to cover the exportations of goods for at least 7 months. Also, the Central Bank of Egypt had tackled the inflation, curbing the efforts to curb inflation rate from high 23% in the fiscal year 16 and 17. Now the average inflation rate is 5.7%, which is lower than the target inflation rate set by the Central Bank, which is in the range between 6 to 12%. All these indicators show that the performance of the Egyptian economy was not bad at all, despite the repercussions of the pandemic. I would like also to speak about the Egyptian pound, the exchange rate of the Egyptian pound, as stated in a recent report issued by Fitch Ratings. The report says that the Egyptian pound is among the best performing emerging market currencies in 2020, despite the decline in most of emerging markets currencies. So it's the international rating agencies' perception of the status of the Egyptian economy that it is stable with a positive outlook in the future.
Mr. Hany, also, if you can walk us through the initiatives that have been taken to support the economy and their impact on reducing the negative effects of the pandemic?
Well, in a recent report also issued by the cabinet, the government has taken nearly 335 measures implemented by 53 entities at the state level Maybe if we list these some of the important measures taken by the government, I would say is that increasing the commodity reserves to 6 months during the pandemic. No one has felt that there is a shortage in any commodity in the market. Unlike what we see in several countries, that supermarkets are almost empty because of shortage of the basic commodities. Also, the government has made exceptional cash payment for irregular workers, which they were estimated at probably 1.6 million workers, and this impacted segment of the society had to be helped during the difficult times. Also, the government reduced the price of natural gas for certain industries, and reduced the industry electricity prices by 10 piastres. The government also introduced initiatives to support the tourism sectors and exporters, and indeed the tourism sector is probably the most affected sector because of the pandemic. On the other hand, the government also adopted an initiative to stimulate the consumption in the market, and postpone the payments of taxes and other government dues to the affected sectors, and waive the late penalty charges. All these measures altogether, in tandem with the initiatives implemented by the Central Bank of Egypt, have boosted the economy and made the negative repercussions less severe.
Mr. Hany, also towards that end, how do you see the president's efforts in achieving a notable economic development?
Say again, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, I was saying that how do you see the efforts exerted by the president in achieving a notable economic development?
In fact, the president on many occasions gave his directions to the cabinet and prime minister to exert more efforts to alleviate the repercussions of the pandemic and continue with the progressions of the works in the pipeline, particularly in the national mega projects. We see the president occasionally, almost every week, inaugurating projects and inspecting, touring the country, west and south, to inspect the progress of the projects. And these directives, in fact, were needed to continue with the progress of the projects and to place Egypt among the nations that perform well despite the repercussions of and the slowdown of the economy elsewhere.
Mr. Hany Abou El Fotouh, economic expert, thank you so much for being with us and for your insight. That was Mr. Hany Abou El Fotouh, economic expert, joining us over the phone. And dear viewers, now we move on to a quick break and then be back to resume the breakfast show live on Nile TV International.